In this class, we'll be looking at how to work out the circumference or diameter or radius of a circle, and then be looking at the perimeter of a couple of shapes as well. So the first thing we did, of course, was we looked at actually how to find pi. So we had various things we looked at. We had the Vietnamese conical hat, a CD, a water bottle, and the job was to try and find the circumference and the diameter. What we did is, once we had found the diameter and the circumference, we said C divided by D. Then generally the whole class, when we added all up and we found averages, I think we got pretty close to 3.2. And this is ideal because, of course, pi is, for us, it's enough to say it's 3.141. Okay? And that is the same for every circle. Every circle, C divided by D equals pi. Okay? Now let's just reminder, C is the distance around the circle, that's C. D is the line from one end to the other edge, one edge to the other edge of the circle through the middle. And we also have this here, which is R, the radius. Okay, so those are circumference, diameter, radius. So we found pi. This meant that we are able to find the circumference, the diameter, and the radius using various calculations. So we know pi equals C over D. This means that for C, now the circumference is the biggest number. That means it's got to be the diameter, and it's going to be bigger than the diameter. So we could say that that is multiplied by pi. The diameter is smaller. Therefore, we know it's got to be the circumference divided by pi. The radius is basically, it's half of the diameter. So if we're using this calculation, if we're working out D equals C divided by pi, it's just half of that answer. Now we need these are very important to be able to do some calculations. For example, what is the C? Okay, this means what is the circumference? Now, always start with the correct formula. C equals, now we know it's the smaller one that we're using. We've got the 20 here, the diameter. We're trying to get the bigger number. So, the diameter times pi. Then, using the equals in the same line, we can plug in the numbers. Okay, we don't need to say 3.141. We can still keep saying pi, unless if your question actually says use pi to 3.141, you can substitute. But otherwise, if we're using a calculator, we can just keep it as pi. So, bring up the calculator, and we find pi times 20 is, here we go, 62.831. And for this lesson, we're going to look at all of them in one decimal place. So of course that is 62.8, and do not forget the units. Next one, number 4. What is D? What is R? So this time D, remember we're working out the smaller one, so it has to be the circumference, and it would be divided by pi, because we're trying to get the smaller number. So that means d equals, again, equal sign, lined up, 100 divided by pi. Equals, again, bring up the calculator, clear, 100 divided by pi equals, oops, I didn't actually read that all the way, 31.831, 31.831, d equals 31.8 meters. Again, units, this time the units are different. Now we also said that r equals d over 2, so that means equals 31.8 over 2. R equals, we could use a calculator if we wanted, but 15.9 meters, half of the radius, the diameter. Okay, what is the perimeter? Now, this is a bit trickier. We're actually looking at what we've got here is a quarter of a circle. I didn't have a tool to draw quarters of circles, so this is as close as I could get it. We know it's a quarter because we have a right angle here. And of course, there are 4 right angles in a circle. So, first of all, let's calculate, let's actually label them. Let's say that this side is A, this side is B, this side is C. So, the perimeter equals A plus B plus C. Now, we know A and B. A plus B is just 3 plus 3, because of course these two sides are both the radius, so they're exactly the same. So that's 6 millimeters. Now the trickier part, C, now we know it's a quarter of a circle. So the circumference of a full circle would of course be diameter times pi. That is for a whole circle. But we've only got a quarter of a circle. So we need to divide it by 4. Now of course we talked about it. We could also write this as C equals D times pi, divide by 4, if you wanted. So again, we can plug in the numbers. Now the diameter, don't forget this is the radius. If the diameter went all the way along, it's 3 times 2, okay, which is of course 6. 6 times pi divided by 4, which equals, use the calculator again, 6 times pi equals, divided by 4 equals 4.7123, or 4.7112, we'll do 4.712, or C equals, let's do it to 1 decimal place to make it easier, 4.7 millimeters. We haven't finished yet. Remember we said perimeter equals A plus B plus C, which is 6 plus 4.7. So 10.7 millimeters. Notice how clear and easy that is to follow. I've used the equal sign, the same line the whole way down. I've used words or letters to describe what I'm doing. And never forget the units. If you do forget the unit, you will not get the final answer correct. Okay, last question now. Some people have the most trouble with these types of questions because it's using language, not just numbers. Let's have a look. Now, I think it's easier if we actually highlight some of the important information here. So a man needs to create a 800-meter running track at school. He starts in the middle of the field and then pegs a piece of rope into the ground. How long should the rope be so that he can create an approximately 800-meter track? So, second step after finding the key information is to try and draw what he's talking about. So we've got the peg in the ground. He's walked out with a piece of string, or rope even, and then he's going to walk around to create that circle, which will be 800 meters. So, effectively what we've got is a circumference. And what we're trying to find is the radius. Now, don't forget, the radius is half the diameter. And we know how to create to find the diameter. So let's do that. D equals, remember we're going from a bigger number to a smaller number, so it's the circumference divided by pi, which equals 800 divided by pi, which is 800 divided by pi is 254.6. But don't forget, this is the diameter. We don't want to know the diameter, we want to know the radius. Radius is d over 2. 254.6 divided by 2, which is 127.3. 127.3 meters. Okay, just to check my maths mind isn't broken, let's just divide that by 2. 127.3. Yep, correct.